Where do men go for adventure today? Too many of us as men, we've lost our sense of adventure. We don't really know what life's all about. The feeling of journeying out into the unknown, that excitement that men get for stuff like that, a lot of guys don't have that today. They're just grinding and surviving. And I think it's important because part of being a man, part of really fulfilling who you are and your destiny in life is living with that sense of adventure. We have to keep that sense of adventure during the journey because that's what makes us better men. It makes us the best men that we were designed to be. Let's find out how to do it on today's show. Let's jump in.
Welcome to the Confident Man Podcast, empowering men with the confidence they need to live their adventure. Now, here is your host, David Maxwell.
Hey guys, welcome to the Confident Man Podcast. I'm so glad you could join me today. Have you ever been around a group of boys out in the woods? And I'm talking, like young, like elementary. What do they want to do in the woods? They want to explore. They want to build forts. They want to do things like that. They use their imagination. They think they're, exploring woods out in the terrain, an area that no one's ever been. And it's kind of funny because they just want to go. They don't think about it too much. They don't know where they are a lot of times. They're just going. They just want to check things out. That's what kids do. Why? Because they have that sense of adventure. I remember doing that as a kid. Where I lived in Georgia, when I was young, we had some woods around our neighborhood. Now, these were not like deep, dark woods. These were like suburban woods, in between the communities. So it's not like we were out in the middle of nowhere. But to us as kids, it felt like a giant forest. We felt like we were out in the middle of nowhere. We were exploring land that no one's ever been on, even though, there's homes all around us. But where we were in the woods, you couldn't really see the homes. So it felt like we were just on an adventure. And that's the thing. We love that sense of adventure. And I think as men, sometimes we've lost that. You see, as kids, it kind of comes naturally to us. It's something that we just walk in. You put a bunch of kids out in the woods, they're going to explore. They're going to build forts. They're going to have fun. They're not going to think about too much because they're exploring. It's what they want to do. And I think as men, sometimes we get weighed down with responsibility, with the grind and all those things where we lose that sense of adventure. Now, don't get me wrong. Responsibilities and grinding, they're necessary. They're a part of our life. They're part of who we are as men, and they're important to our role. You don't want to give up your responsibilities or not be able to grind because that's part of who you are as men. But what you don't want to do is let those things take away your sense of adventure, take away that desire to explore kind of new territories, to go out where no man has gone beyond, as Star Trek would say. But here's the deal. Being a man is living with that sense of adventure, and we don't want to lose that. We shouldn't lose that sense of it today because I think it hurts us as men. Having that sense of adventure is a key part of who we are as men. It brings energy to us. When you have that sense of adventure, when you're doing something you've never done before, you're going into new areas, you get excitement, and that's part of what makes us a man. To set out into the unknown stirs our soul as men. It's the way we are. It isn't something that we should just let go of when we're not boys anymore. It's something we should carry into adulthood. The unknown of life is kind of part of the appeal for men. They like to go out into the unknown, to take on challenges, to do things that no one's ever done. So what we want to do is remember a few key things to keep that sense of adventure in our life. And we're going to talk about those today because plans are important, but not perfect. The unknown is the adventure, and growth fuels the adventure. All right, the first thing we want to talk about is how plans are important, but not perfect. I don't know if you're a planner. When my kids were little, my wife and I were very much big planners. She was a big planner. In fact, one of my son's friends joked about it one time and said, y'all probably know what you're going to eat 3 years from now. And we weren't quite that crazy, but we did plan. She had meals planned out. She had everything planned out. And she was much more of a detail planner than I was. I liked the big picture plan. She liked the little detail stuff. We would go on vacation. She would plan every day, almost every minute of the day. Now, we loved it. And we had a great time with it because we could pack more into the days because we planned. Now, I'm not saying you have to be like that as a man, but plans are important. As men, we should plan. We should have plans in our life because planning is a way for you as a man to take responsibility, to kind of have a direction. Men who don't plan, they don't have any direction, and they're not ready for the unknown, for the unexpected when it hits. They don't know what to do. Again, I'm not saying you have to plan out every minute, every detail of your life, but you need to have a basic plan, kind of like a direction, a purpose, where you kind of know where you're going, what you're going to do. You see, men with direction, they can steer when life throws them the unexpected. Because the truth is men, we don't know the future. You don't know what's going to happen next week. You don't know what's going to happen next year. And that's probably a good thing. You know, a lot of movies come out with people who know what's going to happen in the future. Like I think Back to the Future 2 had that where Biff got a thing where he could bet on all these games because he knew who was going to win. And got very selfish and self-centered. And I'm afraid as men, if we really knew the future, we'd probably be doing stuff like that. But here's the deal as men, we can't tell everything that's going on. But that's part of the variety of life. We don't know what's ahead. We have unexpected things happen. We can't control the future, but we can control our response to the future. And that's something we have to remember as men. And that's why having plans, having a purpose with your life, it's important. It's what it's all about. And what we have to do is not worry about making those plans perfect. A lot of guys don't plan because they can't have the perfect plan. Well, if I plan stuff, David, what if what I plan doesn't happen? Well, more stuff will happen if you plan than if you don't. Because planning gives you the ability to kind of figure out where you're going, what direction. You can make adjustments to the plan. You can figure out things about yourself with your plan. And what you want to do as a man is you want to plan. You want to plan your life because that's part of living your adventure. You're having a plan, you're doing something. But understand, the plan won't be perfect. You're not going to get it all right. But what you don't want to do is just be a man who just survives. A lot of guys today, they're just surviving. Life is turbulent and they just feel like they're holding on. You know, they're just kind of holding on and the wind is kicking and the rain is blowing and they're like, I'm just going to hold on. And I'm not saying that sometimes life is hard like that. Sometimes you go through stuff where you just hold on. But what you want to do as a man is learn how to kind of set the course for your life. And that's what direction is. A lot of young guys today aren't taking responsibility for their life. And people beat up on them and say, oh, young men can't do this and can't do that. And I think a lot of it is because they don't really have a purpose. They've not set a plan for their life. They don't have direction for their life. And when you don't have a direction, when you don't really know who you are and where you're going, you're not going to take responsibility. What will happen is selfishness will kind of become your purpose. You know, the world will revolve around you as a man. And I think we all can get like that. That's just human nature. Every person can get like that. But when men don't have a direction, when they don't really have a purpose, they don't really know where they're going, they don't really have a sense of adventure. What they have is a sense of entitlement, of selfishness. Everything revolves around them. So if you get around men who are entitled or selfish, a lot of times it's because they don't really have a direction for their life. They don't really know what's the purpose of their life. What are they really all about? And the bad thing about those guys is when life throws them unexpected stuff, when life, hits them upside the head with something they don't want necessarily, they don't know what to do. They don't have a direction that they can easily swerve and go a different way or move around, because they've all been focused on themselves. So then when bad things happen, they kind of turn inward, or they kind of get cynical and just get angry at life and they blame everybody. We need men who'll keep steering even in the turbulence of life. Life's going to throw you turbulence. You're going to get curveballs. You're going to get things you don't like. That's going to happen. But when you have a sense of direction, you can kind of keep steering even when life gets tough. And that's what we want to do, not try to have a perfect plan. The point of a plan is not to get it all right. The point of a plan is not to be perfect in everything you do. The point of a plan is to have direction. When you have direction, you'll get that sense of adventure and you'll be able to withstand the storms when they come into your life. All right, the second thing we want to talk about is how the unknown is the adventure. You see, as men in our life, too many of us have lost that appeal of the unknown. There's something appealing to us as men about venturing into the unknown. When we're going somewhere that we've never been before, doing something we've never done. And a lot of us as men, we long for that adventure. And what's funny is even if the times have been hard, we look back on it with fondness. We look back on it with, oh man, we did this, it happened. The other day I was talking to some friends of mine and I had met them over a year ago at a place in Utah. It was a fitness resort. And I've talked about it before, but it was a place where, you're working out the whole day just about. You know, the word resort was there because it was a nice place, but fitness was the key word. You wake up in the morning and you go for like a almost 3-hour hike. And so it was wild and it was hard, but it was great. We had a great time going out, venturing, climbing up these hills that I would never climb. You know, this one hill was practically perpendicular. You had to do it. And the guy who was leading us looked at us and just said, just trust the hill. And he just walked up it. And we're like, oh, okay. And we just walked up the hill. So it was kind of crazy, but it was a lot of those unknown things. And there was a sense of adventure in it. And everybody who went, we bonded on that trip because why? We were experiencing something together. We were going off into the unknown. A lot of us had never done anything like this before. And so it gave us that sense of adventure and that time of being together. And I think as men, there's something about that we like. We like the unknown. We like going out and doing something maybe nobody's ever done. But too many men have got caught up in the grind of life. And if we're not careful, life will grind us down because we have responsibilities. We have things we're supposed to do. But a lot of us think that the grind is the purpose of life. And it's not the purpose. It's part of your role. You know, your job may be one where you've got to grind at times, or you may be in a season of life where you're just grinding. And that's fine, but you don't want to live that way the whole time. And I think a lot of men are. And that's why virtual stimulus is so addictive to men today. Whether it be gaming, whether it be porn, those kind of things appeal to men because it's an escape from the life of grinding. And what they're really looking for is that sense of adventure. They've lost that sense of going out into the unknown. And they've allowed themselves to just kind of quit. Just quit life, quit trying. And I'm not saying they're not doing anything. No, they're working hard. They're grinding, but they've lost that sense of adventure. Because the unknown isn't easy. It's scary. When you're going off into the unknown, it's unknown. You're not sure what's going to happen. You could do great. You could fail miserably. But isn't that part of the appeal? Isn't that part of that sense of adventure that we had as kids? And going out into the unknown for us as men now doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to run away or do something like that. The adventure of life is something we choose to do every day. It's when we open up and expand into new horizons of life. It's when you try something new. It doesn't mean you leave your family, grab a backpack and go to Nepal. Okay, I'm not saying you have to run away from life. Too many men check out of life searching for a sense of adventure. We call it a midlife crisis, but really what they're doing is they're trying to find a sense of adventure they lost. And they think, is this all that life is? And here's the deal. You can have a sense of adventure and still keep your responsibilities as a man. You can still have a sense of adventure and be married and have children and mow your grass and do all the stuff that you need to do, but you can still have a sense of adventure of life. And that's the danger. When men lose that, then the midlife crisis appeal begins to pull at them. They run off and have an affair, or they run away from everybody, or they get involved in stuff they don't need to get involved in. And it's a struggle because men like routine. We do like routine as men. It's a normal thing, but we've got to control our routine, or the routine will control us. A lot of men don't know how to do that, and they think the routine is life. No, the routine is part of your life, but you don't want the routine to become your life. What you want to do is keep that sense of adventure, that sense of the unknown, because the unknown is the adventure. Living in the unknown is about taking a new boldness with your life. It's being bold and trying new things, to live a life of growth and pursuit and not grind and survival. You kind of keep your edge when you do that. You move into things you've never done before. You push yourself to do things that maybe you never thought you could do. You learn new things about yourself. We can all do that. There's new things we could learn about ourselves, no matter how old we are, no matter how many responsibilities we are. You see, the journey is the process, but the process is also the journey. You'll never stop going on your journey. No matter what age you get, no matter what stage in life you are, you can keep growing and keep going on a journey, and that gives you that edge of life. And as you do it, you'll continually be changed. And I think that's part of that adventure as men. The change of life, changing and growing, that's a big part of what it is to be a man. To not be the same man you were 10 years ago. To not be the same man you were a year ago. You never arrive as a man. None of us will. We'll never get to that point where we say, I know it all. I've got it all. I know exactly what's going on. But you can always be growing. Life is going to have highs. Life is going to have lows. That's just normal. That's part of life. And what we want to do is understand that on that journey, we're going to do some good stuff. You'll do some smart stuff. You'll do some dumb stuff. We all will. But it's part of the adventure. It's part of the unknown. It's part of the appeal that excites us because we aren't living someone else's life. We're not trying to be like someone else. And we're also not hiding from life. We're not running away to a virtual world. We're living our life. And living our life makes a huge difference. We don't want to lose that thrill of adventure as men. We don't want to be afraid of going out into the unknown. Because as a man, the more you go out into the unknown, the more you have that sense of adventure, the more you become the man you were designed to be. Okay, the third thing we want to talk about is how growth fuels the adventure. As a man, you want to live a life of adventure. And one of the best ways you do that is through growing, through growth. You may say, well, okay, Dave, how do I live my adventure? Well, you don't run away from it. You move into it and you start growing. You start changing. You see, as we grow as men, we discover more life to live. As we learn new things, as we try new things, we discover there's new areas that can be an adventure. You see, the one thing we can control in our life is how we choose to grow. Many men today, they've stopped growing. And that's why they kind of get bored with life. They go to work, they come home, they eat, they binge watch, and they go to bed. And the next day, they just repeat it. Get up, go to work, grind, come home, binge watch, go to bed. And a lot of us as men, we've gotten into that routine and we've lost that sense of adventure. And we put all of our energy into work because that's all we know. We think work is the thing that's supposed to kind of move us out of that. And now you can grow in work and good things can happen from work, but your life isn't about just work. Your life is about you as a whole person. And growth must be something we should do holistically, which means it should be every area of our life. If you want to grow as a man, you should grow at work, You should get better at work. You should learn new things. But life's not just work. You want to grow in every area of your life. You want to grow physically. What are you doing to challenge yourself physically? What are you doing to push yourself physically? How are you kind of going into a new area with physical? Maybe it's working out different. Maybe it's working out at all. Maybe it's watching your diet so you can start losing weight or doing something like that. What are you doing to push yourself physically? What about emotionally? What are you doing to grow emotionally? A lot of men don't think about their emotional growth, but it's so important for the relationships in their life. If you want to have a better relationship with your spouse, if you want to have a better relationship with your kids, if you want to have a better relationship with your friends, you need to grow emotionally. What about mentally? A lot of us think about mental growth as being all work related. But what about just mental growth as far as thinking about the deep things of life? Letting your mind go into areas you've never thought about, or reading something that's kind of a challenge to you. That'll push you to grow mentally. And then there's spiritual growth. A lot of men, they don't really strive to grow spiritually. They're just kind of stuck where they are. Maybe you go to church, maybe you don't. And if you don't, maybe you should start. Maybe that can push you to grow spiritually. And maybe you go to church, but you don't really dig into God. You're not really reading your Bible or doing stuff like that. I would challenge you to do that because you want to grow spiritually just like you want to grow physically, mentally, and emotionally. You see, as men, we want to grow. We want to keep growing. And our growth can't just be in one area of our life. I know guys who are in great shape physically. I mean, they look great. They work out hard. They do all that. But emotionally, they're still junior hires in the way they act. Mentally, they're not really focused on a whole lot because they're only focusing on growing in one area. And there are seasons where you may have to focus on an area. If you go to the doctor and he says, hey, lose weight or die, okay, you may want to focus on your physical for a while. But the truth is, if you want to live with that sense of adventure, you need to be growing in a lot of areas of your life. And then that's kind of the way we want to be. Because growth helps us get changed. Growth helps us continue to move ahead. And there's power that happens in our life when we grow in one area. It actually affects all the other areas. I coached a guy a couple of years ago who really grabbed a hold of living with purpose. When he decided to live with purpose, it brought change into every area of his life. So what happened was he learned this area, which was kind of an emotional thing, a mental thing. But a couple months later, he started really taking charge of his physical self. Why? Because he started growing in one area and it affected other areas of his life. We're the same way. When we start growing in one area, it actually benefits us in other areas. So if you grow in one area, it can help you learn how to grow in the other areas. And that's what we want to do because growth fuels us and gives us the strength for more growth. And that fuels us for our adventure because we're moving into the unknown. Your life is to be experienced. It's to be lived. And what we want to do as men is we want to quit becoming consumers of life and we want to be captains of our life. A lot of us as men, we're just consuming. We're just out there trying to get. We're trying to do. But what we want to do is be captains. And that's where we pick that direction we talked about earlier. And we move in that way. We pick areas to grow in because that's going to help us become better men. Now, being a captain of your life doesn't mean you control everything. We weren't designed to be gods. So don't think that you can control everything. We were designed to be stewards of our life. And being a steward of our life means we're going to create the best life we can be. And what we want to do as men is think for ourselves, to be ourselves, to not let society box us in. Have you noticed how society likes to box men in? It tries to get us to act a certain way, to be a certain way. Maybe it's like that at where you work. Maybe it's like that around some of the friends you hang out with. But what we want to do as men is not allow those stereotypes to classify us. Again, as men, we have a lot of similarities, but we're not the same. And what we want to do is be ourselves. Be the person that we were designed to be. And that's what it means to be a captain of your own life. And what we want to do is learn who we are as individuals. Because when we learn that, we live our own adventure. We live the adventure we were designed to be. And too many men are out there living their life for others, trying to be the cool kids, just like high school. And you think, well, they're adult men now. They shouldn't let peer pressure affect them. But they do. A lot of us do. And what we want to do is just be ourselves. If you're an outdoorsman, if you're a hunter, own it. Be that guy. If you're an anime super fan, own it. Be that guy. If you're into sports, great. If you're into chess, super. You want to find what you're into, who you are as a man, and you want that to be part of your adventure. You see, every adventure is personal. Every adventure is our own. And the beauty of it is it can change. The beauty of an adventure is there's new areas to conquer, new places to grow. And as we grow, our adventure grows. Life gets clearer. And we get to figure ourselves out and make a better difference in the world. All right, guys, in closing today, I want to just ask a simple question. How's your life? Are you living an adventure? Are you living with that sense of adventure in your life? Or have you lost the sense of the unknown? What new things are you trying? What new things have you done this year so far? Or have you just kind of made those excuses of, well, I'll do it next week, next month, next year? You see, the unknown is part of the appeal of life to us as men. And there's some things that we want to do to help our journey keep that sense of an adventure. We want to understand that plans are important, but not perfect. You should plan, but understand your plan's not going to be perfect. We should understand that the unknown is part of the adventure. You're not going to know everything. Don't try to know everything, but you want to have that sense of adventure of moving into the unknown. And then we want to understand that our growth fuels our adventure. You want to keep growing as a man. You want to keep getting better. The more you do that, the more sense of adventure you'll have. Men today need adventure, and each man can have their own adventure, and it starts with us just taking the time to start down that path.
You've been listening to the Confident Man Podcast. Click subscribe so you don't miss a future episode. You can connect with David on Facebook and Instagram at David the Maxwell. Find resources to help you as a man at theconfidentman.me. That's theconfidentman.me.